Hey guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a graph from data in an Excel sheet that is very similar to the data that I gave you for your graphing assignment. Okay, so let's look at this data. What we see is we see here that students in grades 4, 5, and 6 from different Florida school districts took an evolution exam, and this is the percentage of students from each of these grades in each of these Florida school districts who passed the exam. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take this table data and put it into a graph form so that it's easier for people to understand and to interpret. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the data that we want to use for our graph. Okay, and then we're going to go to Insert, and we're going to choose a column graph. Okay, I think this is going to be the simplest way to display this data, and you guys have to decide, well, what's the simplest way to display the data that I gave you in the activity, in the graphing activity, and that's up to you to decide. But I think for this data that I'm looking at, the best way to do it is to do a column graph. And I like 2D columns, and I do like the clustered columns, but you can play around with this option if you want to. Okay. Excel is really smart. It's such a great program because what it did was it took this data, okay, in the table, and it actually made a really nice simple graph of this data. So for example, the students who passed the exam from grade 4, they're represented in the blue columns here, okay, from each of the different school districts, which are displayed down here at the bottom of the graph. Okay. And then this red column here represents the students in grade 5 who passed the exam from the different school districts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then the green bar here represents the students from grade 6 who passed the evolution exam, okay, here in school districts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay, and sort of this is the percentage of students who passed, okay. So it's a really nice graph, and it's super simple. There's probably not a simpler way to display this data. But we have to edit this chart so it can sort of stand on its own, okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to tell we need to be able to, our audience has to be able to look at this graph and say, oh, well, the blue columns represent students in grade 4. Well, you can't see that because it just says series now. So we have to edit that. So what you do is you click on one of the blue bars for students in grade 4. Okay, it highlights the data here that it's graphing. And right-click on the bar. Okay. Then you're going to select data. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to edit the names of each of these series so that they are titled grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6. Okay, so we have here highlighted series 1. The series 1, that's all of the students from grade 4 from the different districts who passed the exam. So let's press edit. Okay, and we're going to rename this series grade 4. Okay, so you can see here it's changed the series name to grade 4, and it's changed the legend to say, okay, all the columns in blue now represent students from grade 4. Okay, and then you do that for each of the other series. Okay, so now we have an accurate legend, so we can just press OK. So that looks pretty good. So the last two things we have to do is we have to label our horizontal here and vertical axes. Okay. The way that we do that is we select the whole graph, and I'm doing this just by sort of clicking on the margin of the graph here. Okay. So it has the whole graph highlighted and all the data that's displayed. All the data that's used to make the graph highlighted. Okay. And we want to change the layout, so we want to give the different axes titles. So we're going to put a title below the x-axis, and given an appropriate title. And of course, these are the different Florida school districts. Okay. All right. And then now we need to label the vertical axis. So go to axis title. We're going to rotate the title. You're going to highlight the text, and it can be kind of tricky because you're dealing with vertical text, but it's not that bad. And we'll label it percentage of students passing exam. Okay, and then you just click out. Voila, we have created our exam, we have created our graph that now really accurately displays the data in our data sheet. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to take this and paste it into a word processing document, and I'm just going to use Word. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click again here on the edge of the chart just to make sure it's selected. I'm going to right click on my mouse and I'm going to say copy. Then I'm going to go, so now we're going to go to our Word document and paste this graph into our Word document. Okay, and you can use any word processing document, word processing program. I'm just using Word. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste my graph into Word, and I'm just going to select the whole graph and then center it on the page so it looks really nice. And now the last thing we have to do is we have to create a figure legend for the graph. And so we're going to call it figure 1. And figure 1 is the percentage of students who passed an evolution exam. We're going to say percentage of students from 5 Florida school districts who passed an evolution exam. And then we'll say data is presented for students in from grades 4, 5, and 6, or something like that. And voila, we have a perfect graph with a nice legend that anybody can take a look at and understand. Okay, so then you're going to want to save it, and then you'll submit this to me when you complete your assignment. So you'll submit it to me via Blackboard. And that's it. Simple, simple, simple.